So today, you guys, I have 10 easy chain links that I can teach you to up your chain game. Right? So you guys, I have 10 easy chain links that you can use to up your chain game. I got it. I figured it out. You may be thinking, where has she been? And I will tell you, I don't know. Here's the intro. Hi, my name is Marie. I like to make things and I like to turn around and show you how I made those things. Welcome to my channel. Bing. All right, let's get into it. These are the chains that we are going to be doing today. Okay, so I have this solid bare copper that I got. I have the link in the description with all the supplies, and of course you're going to be needing your tools. Okay, and I'll show you the tools as we go along. Okay, it's just easier to do it that way. All right, what I really like to use is 18 gauge copper wire. Okay, that is like the easiest I can use in this case because it's not too hard and it's not too soft. So I'm going to have it in the description box below, every single supply you're going to need. I don't know if you guys really know, but I do not like to use measurements. Don't ask me to do any measurements and I'm going to freak out if I have to do measurements. I know I need to calm down, but I don't like doing measurements. So let's work on our very first one. But of course I use 18 gauge copper wire to do it. Okay. So I'm opening this for the first time. It said on the outside that this is going to unravel as soon as we disconnect it. And it did a little bit. Okay, that was fun. that was really fun. It was a little too fun. To start this off, what we're gonna need is to have your 6-step looping pliers. You got that, and I like my nylon pliers because I like to do this at first. Then I have my flesh cutters. Okay, so this is just to make sure that this end is as flush and as straight as possible. So I do a little quick snipperoo so that it is flat and beautiful looking. Okay, grab your loopers and you need to determine exactly how big you want your circle to be with this. Okay, this is how I find out. You just put it on there. You put it on to see, and I think that it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's my 5th one. I believe it's my 5th one. Okay, so we're going to use the 5th one. This one right here. This is the anatomy of it. You got the 2 loops right here. And then you have this huge main loop. So we already assessed that this huge main loop here is this one. So what we do is we start with 1 loop, and I believe it is my smallest one, which is the very first one. So you start with this little loop here, and it should look like this. And I grab it so that the loop is outside of my pliers, and I just wrap it around. Okay, and now you have your little loop. Then, in order to get the loops so that they're even, sometimes I just eye it up. I can stick my pliers in there if I want to, or I can just eye it up. For me, I'm just going to eye it up and make my little loop here and follow through. Then I'm going to cut it. Boop. And if you want to get your chain nose and just like start moving things around to make it fit. Okay. the way you want it to look. Okay, so we got our first chain done, got our first little link in our chain done. All right, and so you always want to start by making sure that you have a flat end on your wire. Make sure that it's all flush and clean and straight and professional, people. Once we have our flat end, what I like to do is I want to make sure that everything's straight. That's how you're keeping it professional. That's what I've been trying to teach you guys for a while now, making sure that everything is professional. In order to create our chain, we have to take that very first link that we created. We have to take it and put it on to the wire. Make sure that you're putting it so that the loops are facing down. So we put it on there. Take our looping pliers here. Make sure you're using the first one for that small loop. Okay. And we are going to create our little first loop. Now that's on there. It's not going anywhere. I'm going to take this looping pliers, making sure that I'm using my 5th loop and making sure our loop that we just made is outside my pliers. And once you keep doing that, you're going to be doing that for every single link. And the reason why you do that is so that it looks uniform and it looks professional. Okay. So now I'm going to bend my wire around my loop here. All right. We are not twisting our hand. We're not twisting the pliers. The pliers are just here to hold in shape. That's it. And then you use your other hand, your non-dominant hand, to move the wire around your pliers. Okay. This is just so that you can keep it professional and not hurt yourself. Then I'm going to take the very first link and move it down. And now it's inside of the one that I'm currently trying to make. So now I'm going to use my small end here and I'm going to create my second loop by just bending my wire around my pliers. And I'm moving the pliers a little bit just to complete the circle. Now it's locked on there. I'm going to flat cut. Okay. And I'm going to make sure that my loops are all closed. And I'm bending things around just to make sure it all is uniform. And there you have it. You have 2 links. You just keep adding more links to your chain until you get something a little bit like this. Okay. If you want to make a chain and connect them, this is how you connect them. Okay. We slip it on. We need to make sure that we're slipping it on the right way. So I slipped it on so that the loops are facing down. Okay. Using our smallest loop on here, we're going to create our little loop. And you see, it's going in the same direction. It's pointing downwards, just like this is pointing downwards. And now it's connected. Now we're going to do this big loop part. Make sure that our loop is outside our pliers like this. Make sure we're using the 5th step on our pliers here. And then we're going to bend it around to create our main loop. And then we have it like that. Slip your chain down. In order for this to actually work and make it so that the chain is movable, these loops have to be almost touching. You see how it is? Almost touching. And it moves and it's very pliable. Now, say if these loops were not touching, see, I'm pulling them apart. Let's say they're not touching, it just doesn't flow. Once you start making these chains, they start to react to each other. So we want to make sure that they're all the same. Okay. And that helps for the flowability of it. Now we did our main loop. Now we're going to end with this other second loop here. Using our first step here, we're going to do our loop. And there you go. And now I'm going to cut it. Then we're going to grab our chain nose and we are going to do that. Okay. So you'll just keep adding on till you have a full chain like this. Now let's move on to the next chain. Our second chain link that we're going to do is this little guy right here. The anatomy of him is we got this one big loop, we wrapped it around, and this right here is an open loop right here, which is going to help us for connecting our chains together. This is one that you do not need to loop it and connect it as you go. You don't need to do that. You can make a whole pile of them and then connect them later on. So this one utilizes the small step and the fifth step. So start with your small loop where you're just opening your pliers and that's it. Okay, so you got your one little tiny loop. You can put the pliers back, put it back on the pliers and bend it back so that this loop and wire can be straight. The next step I'm going to use is my fifth step on my loopers, and I'm going to just, sometimes I just eye it up, but I'm giving myself a little bit of room on this side. Okay. Now we got our little loop here. I'm going to slip it right back on there. I like to keep my link on my pliers just to make sure that it keeps its shape and it doesn't mess up and make it look wonky. So from here, we're just going to wrap it around this little post here. Okay. And sometimes I like to do it a couple times. And I like to keep them uniform so that they're all the same. So it's like about three, you're wrapping it around about 3 times. All right, so that's what we have here. Now we're going to take a combination of our nylon pliers just to shape it and make sure that everything is all straight. Now, when we make our loop, we could leave it like this if you want to, but in order for it to be a chain link, one of these loops has to be pointing up, one needs to be flat. Later on, you'll understand what I mean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our first little loop here and make sure that it's flat. Okay. Make sure I'm flattening it as I go. And that's our loop. Now, make sure that when I cut it, that it is flush. And then I'm going to flatten that little cut down. Make sure it doesn't scratch us later. Now, like I said before, this is an open loop right here. So you can make a whole pile of them and connect them later. But what we're going to do is we're going to connect it to the chain that we already have here. Since this is open, I'm going to open it. You don't need to open it that much. All right, calm down. Calm down. So what I like to do, just take my pliers off to the side and just twist it. Just twist it a bit so that it opens up. And then I need to not connect the 2 loops together, because unless that's the design you're looking for, but we want to have the small loop inside of the big loop. So I'm going to slip that on. Okay. Then I'm going to close it. This is how we connect our links together to make a chain. Okay. So there's a reasoning as to why we want to make sure that the loops are in opposite directions, because otherwise it's not going to lay flat, because the loops are want to go 3 different ways and you don't want to do that. So if you have your loops in 2 different ways, it will flatten it all out. And when you lay it on, it stays flat. So that's our second chain. So our third link is this little guy. You may be thinking, hey, that kind of seems similar to the first one you did. But the first one I did, I made them more oval because it was just easier to do it that way. Now this one is going to be a little bit more tough because you're trying to keep that circle look to it. So how do we do that? All right. So of course we're going to start with our small little loop here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure our wire is flush. Cut that off. And then I want to flatten out my wire. Now we're going to start with our small loop. So look at the anatomy of it. We have 2 small loops. That's what's connecting everything. And then 1 big loop that's a humongous circle. Okay. So we're going to do our small loop. Got our small loop. Now we're going to use our fifth step in our pliers. And we're just wrapping it around. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to over loop it. That's how we create our circle and make sure that our circle is and stays a circle. Okay. Then from here, I feel like I want to take my chain nose just to push out and bend back this small loop, okay, to get it straight. Then I'm going to take my chain again, and I'm going to straighten it, because what I want to do is create this next loop so that they match. Now at this point it's really easy for us to have our loops match, because I can just take my pliers using the small step and I can actually put it inside of the loop I already made. Okay, see that? Then I can have the wire where I need to make my next loop right there on the pliers, right there in the same spot. And I'm gradually just twisting it around. Okay, because this is going to help make everything look uniform and clean. Because like I say, I want you guys to look professional. Okay. Now I'm going to take, and I need to cut this, but I want to do it so that the wire is straight on the end. Okay. So I'm just going to cut it, making sure that it's straight. Boom. All right. Take my chain nose and just start shaping everything. Because not everything is perfect. We're not trying to make it perfect. We're just trying to make it look professional. So I'm just shaping everything to make sure that it is all as uniform as you can make it. Because therefore, really, you're just human. So you can't make everything perfect. How do we connect these? Now, you could make a whole pile of them and connect them all later. So now we have 2 here. Now, the easy way for us to do this, because these loops are open loops, the reason why we could just make a whole pile of them, we can just open these up. Okay, and then we can just slip it on like so, and then we're going to close our loops. And then this is our third one. Okay, so I did this one in gold. This is my personal one that I have to finish, but this is how it would lay. So now let's move on to our fourth link. Okay, so for my next magic trick is this S link here. This is our fourth link that we're going to be doing, and it's probably, I must say, the easiest link that we have here. Okay, again, we're going to make sure everything is straight, and if it's not straight, which I don't like that, that's fine. I'll just cut that off and make sure that it's flush. We're going to be using our third step on our pliers here. So making sure that our wire is just in between right there, so you don't feel it at all. And we're going to be just using our left hand, using our non-dominant hand to make our first loop. So there we go. We have our first loop. Using that same third one, we're going to go, now we have to do it in the opposite direction. So we're going to put our loop into our pliers like this. Here's the open end right here. We're just pointing it downwards. And then we're going to grab our wire, because we're going around our third one. We're just wrapping the wire around, making sure to overwrap it. And that creates a little S shape. Now we can take and we can cut that off, making sure we're leaving behind a flush end here. There we go. Needed to hold on to it, but you know, it happens. Things happen. All right, so I'm just looking at my chain nose. Let me grab that, and I'm just flattening everything out. Sometimes I just take my little nylon pliers and I just put the link all the way in there, and I just go like this. And then there you have it. So in order for me to connect these all together, let's look at how I did it. I used, just to give it a little bit more pizzazz, I used 2 jump rings in order to do that. So now we're getting into jump rings. Now, how do we do jump rings? I'm going to show you really quick. Okay. So of course you got your looping pliers here, right? Each one of them would represent a jump ring size. Now, let's say you want to make a bunch of jump rings. Instead of doing them one at a time, what we're going to do is we're going to do it by using a coil. Let me show you what I mean. I use the really, really small, the very first step on my pliers. Again, we're putting our wire on our pliers like this, just making sure that it's not sticking out. Then we want to make sure, let's do our first loop here. Boom, we did our first loop. That's 1 jump ring. Okay, now how can I make a bunch of jump rings on these pliers? You see where my end is going? My end seems like it's going to go up, which is good. This is exactly where we want it to go. Now, we're going to keep going. We're going to coil it. And as we're coiling this, right, our ends are going to start going up. We're going to coil until the coil keeps going up. I'm going to hold my pliers. I might do a little bit of twisting, which will kind of help it go along. But as you can see, I am coiling and coiling until I can't coil anymore. It just keeps going. I'm moving the wire up. I'm doing a combination of moving both my hands in order to do it, creating a bunch of little loops and spirals, okay? Whenever I try to do jump rings, I try to do a bunch of jump rings at once because I just can't be doing one at a time. It's going to take forever. And with this technique, you can make a bunch of jump rings. I mean, why are we buying jump rings? Just like I did with the earring wire. Why are we buying jump rings? All right. So now when I want to end this, you see where the end of the very first one I did? Now I want to end this coil at the same spot or close to the spot where I began it. I'm feeling like this is in line with this top part. So we're going to cut it right here. Boom. Okay. So now we have this whole coil here. All right. Now, I'm going to take and I'm going to look at this really quick. See, there's an end right here. That's where we just cut. I'm going to keep cutting. Literally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be slowly but surely, I'm going to be cutting up this coil, and that's going to create a bunch of jump rings, okay? Cut, and then I drop. Cut, drop. Drop. So now I have a bunch of little jump rings here. Look at all these beautiful jump rings that went all over the place. So it's all my jump rings in my smallest jump rings, okay? And there you have it. All these are usable jump rings. So it's easier, instead of me opening up my jump rings, I have my two jump rings here, okay? I have my S. I'm going to, since they're open, I'm just going to open one side of my S, and then I'm going to just string on my jump rings. This is jump ring number 1, and then this is jump ring number 2. So now I have two jump rings on there. Now I'm going to close it. So I got two jump rings on there. Now I'm going to open up the next S, and I'm just going to go through the jump rings, and then I'm going to close this off like so. And so this is how I connected the two S's together. Beautiful, huh? Now, this is what it looks like after I've done a whole chain of them. This is what it looks like on as a bracelet. Beautiful. Now let's move on to our fifth link. Our fifth link is basically the same as what we just did, but it's going to be even better. This is our next link. Our next link is basically a coil. All right. So basically that is a nice coil. You can make a whole bracelet like that, or you can just use it as an extender of your bracelet. Okay. Again, this is another lesson in coil. Okay. So this is so you can see it again. Okay. So I'm coiling it. I'm making my loop, but I'm making sure my end is going upwards. And then that's when you keep going with the coil. There you go. So you're going to keep going with your coil. Look at that. And it's going to keep going. Make sure you're moving the wire up a little bit so you give yourself a little bit more space to keep coiling and just moving it up. Look at that. Coil, coil, coil. But you gotta make sure you're paying attention, which I was not. So keep coiling. I like this one. So again, when we're doing our coiling, we want to make sure you see where our end is. My end is about right here. I want to cut it on the other side in the same kind of general area. It kind of makes it so much cleaner looking when you do it like that. So there you go. There's your coil. All right. Now, what I like to do with this coil real quick is I feel like it's not as clean as I would like it to be. So I'm gonna get my nail sander, my nail file, I'll call it, my electric, they call it an e-file, but this is what it looks like. It's connected to a machine over here, but I have that in the description box below. But basically, I'm just going to get these burrs off of here because there seems to be a lot of burrs. So I'm going to turn this on really quick, okay? And I'm just going to sand the end just to make it smooth so it's not just like catching on things. Okay, so that's one side. All right, I like it. Okay, so now I have my little coil here. Now I want to take this first loop of my coil, right? And I want to take it off and bend it in a different direction. Okay. I want to do the same thing on the other side. Boom. Okay. So then you have a link. They're open on either side, and that is how I'm going to create that loop. Now, how am I going to connect these loops together? So in order for them to lay flat, we need to make sure that this loop is going in one direction and the other loop is going in the other direction. Okay, so that's just a slight bend that we can do, but we want to make sure that our coil stays a coil. So this is what you should have. We have one loop going this way and one loop going this way. As I explained in this loop right here, where you have the different loops going in different directions, that's going to help to have everything lay flat. So I'm going to connect this to my other jump rings, and that's how I made my loops. And this is how I made this link. I like it. It's a little different. It's not for everybody, but it is a link. Okay, it's a link and it's also jump rings. Y'all. So that's our fifth link. Okay, now let's move on to our link number 6. Wait, hold on. Before we go any further in this video, I got to talk to you guys about something. Not only have I been teaching you guys how to make jewelry just for fun, I'm also teaching you how to make jewelry professionally so that you can sell it as a business. But what you don't know is that I'm going to be taking it a step further. I've designed some tools that you can use to take your business to the next level. I've designed editable files using Canva. And by the way, I'm not associated or affiliated at all with Canva. I just love it so much. In Canva, I created editable earring cards, business cards, thank you cards, and even shop templates that you can use to build your business. You could put your logo in, You can put your tagline in. You can change the colors. You can change the font. Anything. You can change anything. Just make sure to make it your own for your own business. And the added bonus to this is that you do not have to pay for Canva in order to edit these files. I mean, how awesome is that? For a limited time only, use my coupon code YouTube10 to receive 10% off your choice of a Canva business tool from my website. Again, that code is YouTube10, exactly how it's written on the screen. Use that coupon code to take your business to the next level. Okay, you can go back to the video now. Okay, bye. Love you. So our link number 6 is basically going to utilize beads, okay? The beads that I used here are seed beads. So I got a bunch right here. Nice little seed beads here. So basically I strung on some beads onto 22 gauge copper wire, okay? So basically I strung some beads on there, okay? Just to make some links. These links were made using 10 seed beads, okay? Now, the easiest way for me to do this is to string on the beads first, okay? I did a little loop at the end so that the beads didn't just run away and disappear onto my loop. So it stopped right at that loop when I'm stringing it on, okay? That's a little tip. I already strung on some beads. I already have my little loop. Make sure that it stays here and it's not going all over the place, okay? Now, and I looped the end so that they didn't just fall off. So using my smallest loop right here, I'm giving myself a little bit of wire here. And what I have here is about just under an inch or about 2 centimeters. So basically I'm giving myself about 2 centimeters of wire to work with here. Then I'm going to start with doing a little loop. Okay. So I got a little loop going. Then I'm going to tie off that loop, and I do it about 3 times. And the reason why I'm doing it like that is so that everything could be uniform and everything could be professional looking and clean. So I'm going to count out 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. All right, so I got 10 beads on my wire here. Then I'm going to take my smallest one, get it lined up there, get it on there, and I'm going to bend it back, okay? Making sure that, I want to make sure that my loops, I want to make sure that my beads are all the way at the end of the loop that I already made. Then I'm going to wrap this around. All right. Now you see you got that extra space right there where the beads aren't. You're going to wrap it and make sure that you are filling that space in so that the beads are not just floating around. Okay. And so you got your little link done. Now I'm going to cut this off. And I got my little link. All right, so what I'm going to do, or using a small step on my pliers here, giving myself about 2 centimeters of wire, extra wire to work with here. I'm going to create my first loop, but I'm going to open it up a little bit because what I want to do is slip on the bead link that I already did. Slipped it on, now it's connected. Now put it back on my pliers here, and then I'm going to close off this loop. So now they're both connected to each other at the same time as I'm creating another link. Okay, so let me cut this wire. Boom. Now I'm going to pull up all my beads, make sure that they're all there. So let's look at this. So I have the link that I just attached that I already did. Then I have my new link right here. Get my pliers, get the smallest one, get the smallest loop going, and then I'm going to create my little loop here. And then I'm going to close it off. Okay. Use your chain. You can use your chain nose just to make it all pretty and make sure it's all even. I don't think it really matters as to where the loops are. You just need to make sure that the loops are uniform. Just make sure that they're as uniform as you can make it. Okay, so now we have two links attached to each other. Now I'm going to cut this off. I'm careful not to pop any of my beads or cut any of my beads. And there you have it. So you would just continue adding links on, and you just keep going until you have a chain about this long. And this is what it should look like once you get it done. Cute. I like it because it's very small. It's very dainty. It goes with my dainty bracelet. If you want a little dainty look, or you can do the same thing and you can use bigger beads. So you can use any type of beads for this. But for this example, I just used some seed beads. 11/0 seed beads is what I use. You can use any size bead. That was a chain link number 6. And then we're going to move on to chain link number 7, which is our spiral. The next link that we're going to be doing is a spiral. This is what it looks like. So the anatomy of the spiral is you got the spiral, the two sides of it, and you connect the links using a jump ring. So I'm going to show you how to do all that. Let's start with the spiral part first. With this spiral, we need to do measurements, and I don't like doing measurements at all. You already know this. For this spiral, it's very important to do a measurement because then you end up with an even side of your spiral S, okay? So what I need is about 2 inches, or you got 5 centimeters of wire, okay? So ahead of time, I cut up a couple of them. It's completely up to you what you would use to make your spirals, but I want like a really, really small little loop in the middle of my S. So, and it's also completely up to you whether you want it to be flush or not, but I'm a stickler for flush and straight because we want everything to look professional. Keep telling you guys this. Okay. So I'm using my really, really tiny, dainty little needle nose here, or needle round nose pliers. So as you can see, I have it between right there. I have it right there in between my points here. Make sure that it's not sticking out because we want the whole thing to be spiraled, okay? You're going to start with a loop. And I'm trying to get that loop as small as possible. Okay? There. Now, I like to go to the other side and do the same thing. Little loop. Okay. So, we have a little loop evenly on either side now, okay? Now, there's a number of ways that you can create a spiral without getting any scratches on it. This is how I do it. I use a combination of these pliers and my needle nose here where I'm gonna put it in this hole. So I'm going to start with using these first. Okay, got it in there, and then I'm going to start spiraling it. It's a combination of using my hand and using the pliers. Okay. All right, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side because it's going in the opposite direction. I'm going to do the other side because this is how I'm going to keep it even. All right, so I got them evenly spiraled at this point. So this is what I have so far. You could keep it like that if you want to, but I'm trying to show you the spiral that I did. So using these nylon pliers, because they are nylon pliers, they're not going to scratch my wire, but I'm going to just hold the spiral in the middle there. But as you can see a little bit of the spiral sticking out. That's what you want, because then you know which direction you're going. Okay, and you can see how close your wire is or how far away your wire is. Just make sure that you have it seen a little bit so you can just watch it. So I'm just squishing it in, doing a slight bend like that. So I want to be even. So I'm just going to be alternating between two sides. And this is the way that I get it even. Okay. And I go back and forth until I have it completely spiraled in. I'm bending it more than I'm twisting my hand here. I'm just holding it, but I'm bending it mostly with this hand right here. Okay, just going back and forth, and this is just a way that I get it so that they're even. Personally, I like that. It's even on both sides and it's cute. All right, let's try it again. I'm gonna set this one off to the side here, grab another one of my 5 centimeters, 2 inches of wire. Use my little teeny weenies. Create a loop. Okay, got my loop. Go to the other side. Create another loop. So that they're even. So it'll look like this. Now I'm going to start my spiral. There's one side. Now let's do my other side. Spiral it in. There you go. Now, grab my nylon pliers, squish it in there. Make sure that it's sticking out a little bit so I can monitor how far away it is. Using my non-dominant hand, bend your wire. Just holding it with the pliers. Try not to move. I know it's hard because sometimes I do it myself. Okay. So I like that. Go to the other side. So just switch sides. Keep going, alternating between two sides because we want it to be even. You know what I mean? We just want it to be even. Make sure it doesn't look wonky. You know how I feel about wonky. I don't like wonky. And really, without even trying, you can get it to look even. Because two things. There's two reasons why it looks even. One, you use a measurement. And two, you're alternating between two sides of the spiral. So there you go. You got even. They look pretty similar. They are sisters and not twins, and that's okay. Imperfections is okay. Doesn't need to be perfect. So now we have our two little pieces here. Now, how do we connect these two pieces? The way we're going to do that is utilizing jump rings. You already know how to make a jump ring. So you can always go back to this timestamp and learn how to make jump ring again, okay? For now, I have jump rings already made. It's up to you what size jump rings you want to use, but for mine, I used the 1, 2, 3. I used the third one down on my looping pliers. So those are the jump rings that I made. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take one jump ring, open it up, and then I'm going to grab one of my spirals, put it on the open jump ring, the other spiral, put it on the open jump ring. And it also depends on your preference as to which direction you want them to go, but I'm just connecting them for right now. And there you have it. Okay, so you can continue making spirals and connecting them however you want to, so that you get one that looks kind of like this. So this is what it looks like when it's on. Very, very intricate looking, has a lot of detail. I love this one in particular. Now let's move on to link number 8. Moving on to link number 8. Now link number 8, I love it because it's just so interesting. You can do a lot with it. You can make a whole bracelet with it, or you could just use it as a little accent to a normal bracelet. As you can see with this bracelet I did a bunch of squares and I connected them together using a jump ring. As you can see, one side is open, one side is closed. And when you put a jump ring on it, what it's doing is also making sure that each one of the squares themselves lay flat. Okay, that's what it looks like. Now let's get into it. I got to use my flat pliers in order to do it, because this is going to create the sides of our squares. Hope that makes sense. Sometimes I don't be making sense, but I hope that makes sense. No measurements are needed. Yay. So I'm leaving it on the spool, as I always do, and I just leave my spool over there somewhere, making sure your end is flush, because you want it to look nice and what? Professional. You're right. So starting off with my very middle of my square. Okay, so of course you're doing a square, but it's also a spiral at the same time, but it's a square spiral, shaped like a square. Let's do our little square in the middle. So I'm utilizing the whole edge of these pliers right here for my small square. So I'm just going to bend it. Boom. You got one side of your square, and that's what it looks like. Okay. Now we're going to move to the other side of our square, and we are going to go boom again. All right. So now this is the part where it gets a little dicey. Okay. Squares will tend to all be the same size, but if we're trying to spiral it, that means that the square has to get bigger each time it rounds a corner. Again, hope that makes sense. Let me show you. So instead of me putting my pliers all the way up to this corner right here, we're going to scooch it out a smidgel. Okay. What that's going to do is it's going to kick our square out a little bit. So I don't have it all the way at the edge, as you can see. I don't have it all the way at the edge. I have a little space there. So that's what we want. It's going to kick out this next side out so that it's not up against this wire, but out a little bit more. Let's do it. See? Look at that. We made the square just a little bit bigger. So again, we're not going to go all the way up to the edge here. We're going to kick it out just a smidgel. We're going to kick it out so that it's in line with this side. Now we're going to boom. So we have it out a little bit. And then we're going to keep doing that, noticing how much further we're getting away from these corners. Kick it out. Boom. Again. Kick it out a little bit. Boom. Okay. There you have it. Let's do it one more time. Look how much further we are away from the corners here. That's good. Kicking it out just a little bit. Boom. Now I'm going to use my other spiral as a reference so that we know where we are. Okay. So if I put the square in the same direction as the one that I already made here. So what I've noticed is that we got one, I'm gonna count this. I'm gonna count this right here as 1, 2, and 3. Okay, we're only at 2. So let's do one more till we get all the way up here. All right, let's kick out our side. There we go. All right, so doing our little comparison, I'm at that point where I'm about right here. And so now we can make our loop, okay? So we got our wire already bent. Now I'm going to take my looping pliers and I'm going to use the smallest one. And what I like to do is you can go and make your little measurements. There's some people who love measurements. They love go and get their little ruler and get their little Sharpie and make a little mark right here. But I like using my eyeballs for some reason. So I'm going to use my eyeballs and I'm going to eye it up to about right in the middle there. Because what we're trying to do is we need to create a loop because we're halfway through our square. So I just have my wire on my looping pliers and I am creating a little loop. Okay. There's my loop. I always say these things are easy peasy, but use some patience and I think you can get there, okay? So there we go. We're at that point where we have our little loop. Let me show you. So here you go. We're at that point we have a loop, okay? Because we already made our loop, we need to get to this other side. We have to go down this side and then we have to go down this side and create another loop, and then that's where we're going to end it, okay? So that's what we're going to do. Back to using my flats. I'm going to get my plier right up to the edge there. And I'm going to create another side. Now we need to get over here to this other side. And we are going to create another side. There we go. It's up to you whether you want to just cut it and then create your loop. But again, I'm going to eye it up using my small part of my looping pliers. Eye it up to the other side. I'm like, You may be like, no, move it over, Spidge. But for me, I don't know. I think it's right here. I think it's right here, okay? So I'm going to create my loop. And that's how I'm going to create that little loop. Then I'm going to use my cutters, making sure I'm leaving behind a straight edge. I'm just going to cut it right here. I don't know what that was. Right, her. Oh, God. Please pray for me. So this is what we end up with. Now it's up to you. You want to go and shape it, do your little magical stuff. But that's my square. It may look like the one I just made, or it may be a little bit bigger, but that is it. Now we got our square. Now, how do we connect them? Again, we're using jump rings. Get myself a little nice size jump ring. Actually, you can use as small or as large of a jump ring as you feel. So we attach it using a jump ring, put the jump ring on, and you attach your square, and then you close it. And then there you have it, all attached. This is what it looks like when it's on. I love it. It's just such a magical link that I'm definitely going to be using this link for a lot of things. Love it. That was link number 8. Now let's move on to link number 9. Link number 9 is kind of like the square that we just did, except that it's a circle. Okay, I need to calm down. This is what it looks like. So we have a circle. These are the 2 loops, and then this is a spiral. So we're going to start with the spiral part really quick. Okay. Again, no measurements. So I like to use my little tiny needle nose here, or round nose. Let's start with our spiral. Now, when it comes to the spiral, again, it's up to you how big you want to make it, how small you want to make it. It's completely up to you. So I start with my spiral. Have a cute little spiral. And just like we did with our S spiral, we are going to do the same exact thing. We're going to use our nylon pliers to just hold the spiral so that we're not scratching it on anything. So you're clamping it between the plates of your pliers here. And I'm bending it with this hand again. And I'm holding it. I'm just holding it with this hand. I'm opening it and closing it. And I'm using this hand to create the spiral and control the spiral and where it's going to go. Okay. All right. So I got a nice little spiral here. And sometimes you can even take it and put it in your hands and do the same thing. Just hold it and spiral it. Okay. Hold it, spiral it. Now I'm at that point where I feel that this is where I'm going to put my loop here. Using the smallest end of my looping pliers, I'm just going to put my pliers on here. Doesn't have to be anything special. Clamp it, bend my wire, open up the pliers, spin it. Open up the pliers and then spin it and continue with your loop. There you go. So I got my little loop. Now I could probably just leave it on there and just spiral as I'm going here. All I need to do is do one bend so that I'm getting this wire onto the other side. Now I'm going to use my nylon pliers just to clamp it down, making sure everything is flat and even. Okay. I don't know. I don't like it. So I'm going to open it up a little bit. If I don't like it, I don't feel that it's as circle as I would like it to be. So again, I'm going to clamp it this way, where I'm holding the loop and the spiral between the plates of my nylon pliers, and then I'm just bending it. I love that way better. Okay, there you go. So I got it so that it's on the other side. So now I can end this off with a loop. Okay. The small end of my nylon pliers, I'm just going to eye it up with my eyeballs. From here, I'm going to do the loop. Okay. So I'm using my other hand to just bend it around the pliers. Again, using my other hand to bend it around the pliers like that. Okay. Leaving it on the pliers also helps keeping the circle a circle. Okay. So there you have it. And I'm going to end it right here. We're going to cut it. Okay. Making sure I'm leaving behind a straight edge. There you go. And there's my little circle spiral. Use my nylon pliers just to make sure everything is flat and uniform. And then there you have it. Now, how am I going to attach it? Again, I'm using jump rings, but I used small jump rings in order to attach this. Let's open up our jump ring. Boom. Got a little open. Now I'm going to attach it. You see how this is, I'm attaching it to the open-ended loop now. And then when I'm attaching, you want to attach the open-ended loop right here with the closed loop. All right. For some reason, it just looks so much better. It looks so much better when you do it that way. Close your jump ring. This is what it should look like. Pretty. And what it does, it makes everything look so uniform when you do it that way. You got an open-ended loop here attached to a closed. You got a closed loop over here attached to an open loop. So you're just like alternating it, keeping it uniform. So that was link number 9. Let's move on to link number 10. All right, for link number 10, I like this one because it's a little bit different than the circle. These are the oval ones, okay? Let's compare them. The circles are a little bit more open, they're more lazy, they're more flowy. The ovals are a little bit more slender, the spirals are more packed. Now I'm going to show you how to do that, okay? So it's basically the same thing. Make sure you have a flush end here. Make sure it's all clean and straight. We're going to start with no measurements. We're going to start with a little spiral. Spiral, spiral. Okay, we've got a nice little spiral here. There we go. Using my nylons. Now, this is the part where this is how I'm making it more slender. I'm squishing it as I go because we're going to make sure that the spiral layers or levels are very, very packed together. And even taking the time to like squish it a little bit. Just making it as packed as possible. Using my pliers, I'm just packing those spirals in. Okay. And I'm squishing it with my hand too. Look at that. Very packed. Okay. Now, let's keep going. Look at it. Just pack it in there. Now, I'm going to be shaping this just using my nylon pliers, squishing it as much as I can, flattening it as I go. Look at that. Nice little packed spiral. I'm going to use my hand to do it. Look at that. All right. Use my I like it. So I'm going to pull out the wire a little bit because of the spiral is so packed. I want to be able to fit my pliers in there. Using my smallest one. So I got it on my pliers. I'm just going to bend it around. Open my pliers, grab it again, continue with that loop. There you go. Love it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it on the pliers and I'm just going to bend it around here. Leaving it on my pliers, bending it around. There we go. Bending it around. Okay, so now I'm on the other side. It's up to you. I'm going to use my pliers, my nylon pliers, to just squish, get it as packed as possible. All right, so I'm on the other side now. Using my looping pliers, I'm gonna open it up just a little bit using my smaller end. And you notice that I always end up bending it into a loop, but going the opposite direction. You see how it's spiraling in this direction? When I'm doing a loop, we're gonna go back the way we came. Okay, and I'm just spinning it around here. And there you go. Then I'm gonna squish it down so that the layers are close. Okay, and there you go. Nice little packed spiral. That's kind of like an oval at the same time. And then I'm gonna cut, leaving behind a nice clean edge. Okay, there you go. There you go. Grab your nylon pliers just to squish it down a little bit. Okay. Close this loop off a little bit. And there you have it. That's what it looks like. So this is really good for, like, you can even use it as a closure. You can use it as just an extra link in a bigger dynamic of a bracelet, or you can make a whole bracelet out of the same link like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this link that I just made, and of course we want to attach it. You see where this is the closed loop, this is the open loop, okay, or the loop that can be opened. So I'm going to grab a simple jump ring, because it doesn't really matter the size, but it's completely up to you what size you actually want to use. I'm going to open it up, attach my closed loop right here, and then attach my open loop to that. And then we're going to close that. Alrighty. So this is what it looks like when it's on. So you got an open loop, you got a closed loop, and so we're alternating it so that it lays flat and it looks uniform. Look at that, so cute. And that was link number 10. Look at that. 10 links that you can use to create bracelets out of. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Beautiful. Hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed doing it. Hope you guys will be able to use these links in order to sell in your own stores. And again, make sure to check out my website. It's probably up above me or below me or my face. I don't know. Make sure you check out my website. There you will find tools that you can use in order to up the level of your store. Make sure to use my limited time coupon code YouTube10 in order to receive 10% off your choice of a Canva business tool. Again, thank you so much for watching. Okay, bye. My hair falling out.